Hello, I'm Casey Aiken, and this is 21 This Week. Coming up next, why would David Trone spend $42 million for a U.S. Senate seat? Because he can. Earth Day 2024 is upon us. Is net zero 2050 the impossible dream? And how to address the growing anti-Semitism in Montgomery County. Our panel of insiders will give you the story behind the story. We're joined by former County Council member and CEO of SkillSmart, Mike Knapp. Stacey Sauter, Vice Chairman of the Montgomery County Republican Central Committee, and special guest, House of Delegate member Ryan Spiegel. Stay tuned for these stories and more on the next 21 This Week. Over the past several years, there have been a growing number of hate-related incidents here in Montgomery County. Between 2018 and now, hate-related incidents have increased 70%. In January of 2023, the problem rose to such a level at the Montgomery County school system that the county created an anti-hate task force. Now, tensions created by the Israeli-Hamas conflict have exacerbated the problem even more, as demonstrated by the controversy over the proposed screening on the campus of Montgomery College of a movie entitled The Occupation of the American Mind, which has been denounced as anti-Semitic. With us today is Delegate Ryan Spiegel to discuss the controversy over the film and also to give us a sense of how we can fight these hate-related crimes in general. Welcome, Ryan.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, Ryan, the controversy this week and last week was over the screening of this film, which is blatantly anti-Semitic and offensive. There's a borderline, question of between a freedom of expression and it's also an exposition of hate. So how do we address this?
Well, look, first of all, thank you for acknowledging that this film is blatantly anti-Semitic. It is sometimes advertised as a documentary, but it is not. It is a vile anti-Semitic film that really feeds off of age-old tropes, conspiracy theories about this small persecuted minority controlling the minds of the media and the public. And it's really despicable. So thank you for drawing attention to it. But to your question, I think, look, in a free society, the price we pay for having a First Amendment is that people are entitled to express their views, no matter how abhorrent they are. So we can't respond to hate speech by forcibly silencing it. We have to balance that response with the First Amendment and with the values of academic freedom. And I think that's why you hear civil rights organizations often saying that the best response to hate speech is not to quash it, but to actively engage in proactive anti-hate speech.
Well, I think there's an effort, obviously, by the county with the creation of the anti-hate work task force to address the issue in the school system and abroad. But it seems to have had little effect because there's still a growing number, and it's not just anti-Semitism, it's hate against its other religious groups. I mean, there have been Baptist churches that have experienced graffiti attacks. There have been other institutions. So I think, how do we get a more general effort to combat these incidents?
Yeah, first, let me say, I think it's important to emphasize that this latest issue with this film was not a sanctioned event organized or blessed by the administration of Montgomery College. And I think President Williams and his team have issued some good, strong statements condemning it and condemning hate speech and anti-Semitic messaging in general. But let me offer a few suggestions here. We're obviously tackling a big issue, and it's not something we can solve in the next 3 minutes. But in addition to engaging in proactive anti-hate speech, which myself and many other elected officials and community leaders are doing, there's some other things we can do. We need more training and education so people understand what speech and what activity constitutes anti-Semitism or other hate. Unfortunately, defenders of hate speech are often trying to split hairs or muddy the waters or use revisionist history. And that's why state officials and local officials have pushed for more education in our curricula, and that's both at the K through 12 level and at the higher ed level, and in training our educators as well. I think we also need to make sure our government institutions are not either intentionally or unintentionally enabling or promoting hate speech, which is not the same thing as having to allow it in the public sphere. And finally, I think we need to continue building relationships and alliances across communities to grow our empathy and our understanding. We are an extremely diverse county. There are a lot of constituencies that know what it's like, unfortunately, to be victims of hate, whether it's the Black, Asian, Latino, immigrant, or LGBTQ communities and others. And I think we should all be standing together against hate, including anti-Semitism, which is, of course, one of the oldest and most pervasive forms of hate.
Well, I think that's a tremendous point. I really think that the faith-based communities need to rally around this issue and make it like the civil rights issue of the year, because this is tearing our society apart when we permit these types of incidents and this type of expression to continue to fester, excuse me. And I appreciate your coming on today to address this in a forceful and forthright manner. So thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Stay tuned. When we come back from this short break, we'll be talking about a whole bunch of other things. We're going to talk about, the panel is going to weigh in on their view on hate crimes. And we're going to talk about the two other topics, net zero 2050 and the Senate race between Angela Alsobrooks and David Trone. Stay tuned.
Jordan knows he shouldn't eat this entire bowl of nachos, but tonight he's earned that right. Because a few hours ago, in the middle of happy hour, he recognized a sign. Not from the gods or a bolt of lightning, but from a double heart, a kissy face, and a fourth ha in ha ha ha. That's when Jordan knew he was buzzed. So when it was time to go, he got a ride home instead of driving. Be a legend like Jordan. Recognize your buzzed warning signs and get a ride home. Buzz driving is drunk driving.
When I first saw a turtle, my heart was full. Now I'm anything but lonely.
We had this deep connection, this heart connection.
He just wants to be close to you and part of your life.
Every day with Turtle is a perfect day.
When I'm holding her, it makes me feel calmer.
I think everything he does shows how much he loves us.
When we adopt a shelter pet,
We discover
they're a little bit of a lot of things.
But they're all pure love.
And welcome back. Well, that was a very interesting segment with Delegate Ryan Spiegel. And now, panel, I want to give you an opportunity to add any additional thoughts that you might have. Mike, we'll start with you.
Thanks. And I think Delegate Spiegel did a nice job. And I think one of the points he raised, which I think is really important, and we're uniquely positioned in Montgomery County in that we are such a diverse community. When you look at a place like Montgomery College, where we have literally every country in the world represented in our educational system there, it's a great opportunity. It's also a great challenge. And I think, to your point, we need to continue to raise this as an issue, and we ought to be a place where we're working to try and overcome those the divisiveness that appears to be out there in the world. Unfortunately, we've reached a situation over the last 6 to 8 years where there's an element of really, whose team are you a part of? And if you're not on my team, then you're against my team. And I think we've really got to move past that. I think you said in your comments the notion of taking the faith-based community, and I think that's important. Although I think there's been a lot of divisiveness even within the faith-based community. And so I think if we step back and really take the notion that we are one community of many, many people from many, many backgrounds, and take that opportunity to learn about those backgrounds and not assume that because you're not like me, that's bad. And I think we are uniquely positioned to be able to help lead the country in that path and in that journey.
Thank you, Mike. Stacey, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, thank you, Mike, for that. I think that the memo that came out from Jermaine Williams, the president of Montgomery College, in relation to this documentary, that it was brilliant. And it showed to me that he's enlightened and he's trying to spread a sense of enlightenment. Because if you look at that memo, he mentioned the word civil 3 times. He mentioned that you need to have safe environments in order to promote diverse intellectual thought or engagement. And he was very clear about this. 3 times he mentions this. This is his theme. These are the values there. And it would, I think, be very wise for all the presidents of colleges and universities across the country to see his very short, concise message on this. Having said that, part of what we face is that since the dawn of time, we have always had tribal rivalry. It will never go away. But where we are now is if we have people like him who are promoting a message of having a vibrant intellectual environment, it's key. And the other thing to understand is that you may live in an environment of free speech. You can say what you want to say, but you still might suffer the consequences of what you say. It's not a free pass.
Oh, great point, both of you. Thank you so much. And now let's get back to what we probably are better at, which is talking politics. Recently released campaign finance reports for the U.S. Senate race in Maryland was quite revealing. Congressman David Trone, to no one's surprise, is leading, having raised $42.1 million, and his Democratic challenger, Prince George's County Executive Angela Alsobrooks, she's raised a great deal of money herself, but it's $7,162,000. Mike, thus far, all of the polling data have Trone leading Alsobrooks, but according to some pundits, that gap is narrowing. Does Alsobrooks have the time to catch Trone, especially given the disadvantage in fundraising?
Well, first and foremost, I think it's important that they're both really good candidates. And so I think that's an exciting option for the Democratic Party, because you've got 2 really strong candidates who are putting forward messages that I think are real and resonate with residents of the state. I think that Congressman Trone has spent a lot of money. I think that's given him a significant advantage to this point in the race. And I think that, to your point, County Executive Alsobrooks has done a really nice job. And I just looked at a comparison that said, had she run in the race with Senator Van Hollen, she has raised as much as he has to that point in the race where he ran in 2016. And so when you go back and look at that, I think she's doing very, very well. And she's got a lot of cash on hand. And so I think what's going to come down to the end, it's going to be a real horse race with 2 really good candidates. And I think it's going to be a toss-up.
Well, I know I'm old school, but for me, it's a little unseemly that somebody dumps $42 million to become a U.S. senator. And it makes me suspicious, actually, of why he's so eager to be a senator. I mean, I just think, I don't get it. And I'd vote against him just for that reason alone.
Well, I
know you're speechless. That's okay. We're going to go.
I don't know, because I can't think of a situation where I would ever have that much money to be able to spend, and so I don't know how to determine how you would spend it, if that's the way where you want to do it. I think he's got a good message. I think he actually positions it well. I think County Executive Alsobrooks also has a really good message, and I think they present 2 really good opportunities for the Democratic Party for the state of Maryland.
Well, we'll turn to flip the other page and go to the Republican side. Stacey, while the Republican primary, Robin Ficker is got quite a bit of money in his account. Some say it might be self-funded as well. And former Governor Hogan is trailing, but he got into the game late. So what's going to happen there?
First of all, I have to make a declaration that I'm the vice chair of the Montgomery County Republican Party, so I have to tread carefully here.
Yeah, we'll put you on the spot. Don't worry.
Yeah, I know. Thank you. Listen, first of all, I give Robin a lot of credit. He's a perennial candidate. We all know who he is, and we all know where he's coming from. He's a very bright man, actually. If you take time to listen to him and hear what he has to say, he's very engaging, and he loves what he's doing. I mean, he's actually quite fun to work with. And I haven't had as much interaction with Hogan. And I think that, we know what more than likely the outcome will be, but anything can happen. Robin is really putting his heart into this. And we know, as everybody knows, that Hogan is going to be getting a lot of support from the Republican National Committee. And it's probably going to be Hogan's to lose at this point. There are other candidates in the race too. There's John Myrick and Lori Friend. So we have a slate of candidates that are also running in this, and their voices need to be heard. They will be at our convention tomorrow and they'll get a chance to speak.
Well, clearly, it's going to be an interesting contest. If Governor Hogan is the nominee for the Republican Party, it'll be quite an interesting contest between whomever the Democrats. There are other Democratic candidates running as well. But clearly, also Brooks and Mr. Trone are the two leading candidates. So it'll be fun to watch after the election. But I will say, every time I turn on the radio, I hear a David Trone advertisement, even on sports talk radio. So which should be sacrosanct from any political advertising whatsoever. All right, let's go on to our next topic. Monday is the 54th anniversary of the first Earth Day. Now, much has changed from that time, and I remember it because as an 18-year-old, I marched on the Mall for cleaner air and water in that very first Earth Day. But today, there is a war to eliminate fossil fuels. The attention has shifted somewhat from just clean air and water to saving the planet. And I was struck by a piece that I read on the website, The Liberal Patriot, with the headline, "Why Democrats Will Become Energy Realists." Mike, many governments have rushed to embrace net zero emissions by 2050, but is that humanly possible, as pointed out by the challenges that are indicated in that article?
Is it possible? It's a long shot. I mean, I think everybody recognizes that it's a long shot. But I think, like with anything, if you're going to have a big goal, you've got to have a big goal. And to say, well, we're never going to get there, so we're not even going to try. And I think the reality is that we've got to be able to recognize the challenges that we're facing. We've got to recognize that it didn't take very long for us to actually get to this point from a climate perspective when we look at how, the introduction of fossil fuel historically. And so when we think about our ability to innovate and work our way out of the challenges we're facing, is it ultimately going to be net zero? I don't know. But if we don't actually put a target out there, we don't have a challenge that we're trying to achieve, we're never going to get there. And so I think as your article said, the place where most people are is some combination of these things solves a problem. And I think it's the same conversation we tend to have as it relates to transportation. Is it going to be transit? Is it going to be cars? Is it going to be roads? The reality is it's going to be some combination of all of those things used in a way that makes sense. But if you don't actually set some targets, I don't think you ever achieve great growth and innovation.
Well, I mean, that's clearly true. And targets are a wonderful thing. But it also, as pointed out in the article, you need to have 20 to 25% of your GDP dedicated to this proposition, and that much GDP has only been dedicated to any proposition in World War II, when there was a real threat, a physical threat to the United States, not a existential threat that is hard to quantify.
Look, the author of the article did a really good job of coming up with all the reasons that we couldn't do it. I give him credit for that. The challenge is if we take that energy and actually identify some of the ways that we can do it and work towards a common objective, I think that would be constructive. And I just, we talk about the divisiveness that's out there. We can spend a lot of time saying why we can't do something, or we can spend some time thinking about how we're going to try and achieve some objectives. And I thought the article, while it was well documented, spent a lot of time telling us why we couldn't do it.
Well, here, look, I don't want to dominate the conversation because I want to hear from Stacey in a second, but we are a fossil fuel based civilization.
Today, we weren't always. It's over the last 150 years.
The quality of life, our prosperity rests on the combustion of huge quantities of fossil fuels. And we can't ignore that fact. To say that we can go to wind and solar and hydro is, in the next 27 years is, well,
Historically, you're accurate. That's what we built. That's what we've built to. That was the next step in our energy transformation. What's the next step in our energy transformation? We don't know, because that's looking prospectively, and we're spending a lot of time looking retrospectively and saying, well, this is where we are, and this is where we got, how it got us here. You're right. That's what got us here. But what takes us to the next level?
Right. Okay. So I'll let you have that last word. I'm going to go to Stacey, and then I'll finish up. Stacey, the author points out that there is only 27 years remaining to accomplish these goals, and the goal of achieving net zero with a speed and scale of modalities would be historically unprecedented, absent, and this is the key point, drastically lowering our living standards and or radical social disruptions. Is it worth the price?
Casey, if this keeps up, we will not be celebrating Earth Day. We'll be celebrating Dearth Day, because there will be a scarcity of the energy products that we need to have a productive society and for people to live safely. And you've heard me mention this on your program before, and that is that one of the problems that I have, especially with the socialists, with the hardcore left, is that they want these big programs, they want them now. And so instead of beta testing things in certain areas of the country to see how they work, how they can be improved, what the issues are, they want to do a mandate across the entire country. And we're finding this is not working. And so you have to do this, I think, in steps where you have evidence-based solutions to these energy issues. You just don't go in and expect an entire industry like car manufacturers to change their product line and then find out that the vast majority of buyers out there they want a gas-powered car, or they want the hybrid car, not just purely electric. There are a multitude of collateral issues that are coming along with these cars that are not being addressed. One of them is that these cars, their batteries, when they catch on fire, they're very hard to extinguish. The batteries are so heavy, so dense, that the guardrails are not protective enough on our highways. We really need to take a big step back. No one is against clean air, clean water, but what we need to do is take incremental steps to implement these plans.
Well, thank you, Stacey. Mike, you look like you have one more thought on this.
Oh, no.
And I'll let you have the final word.
No, I think it's right. I think what Stacey said is right. We should take an evidence-based approach, and we should be learning along the way. And what I don't know is that necessarily has to be incremental. When you see transformational change, it requires you doing a number of things at one time and learning from that. And I think that's what we're seeing, and we'll get better as we proceed.
But if I can make one point,
Stacey, I'm going to cut you off because I'm going to take the last word. Mandates don't work. You have to let the market get to the point where people will accept the changes as they come along. And now we got to go take a break, and stay tuned for parting shots.
Hey world, I have a quick message. It's about safe driving. All right, let's go. Anytime you're driving, have the seatbelt buckled tight, both hands on the wheel and your phone out of sight. When not in your hand trying to text somebody back, because if you do, your car might get smacked. The moral of the story, just put your phone down. The people on the road will stay safe and sound. Put your phone down, put your phone down. People on the road will stay safe and sound. Yeah.
Jordan knows he shouldn't eat this entire bowl of nachos, but tonight he's earned that right. Because a few hours ago in the middle of happy hour, he recognized a sign. Not from the gods or a bolt of lightning, but from a double heart, a kissy face, and a fourth ha in ha ha ha. That's when Jordan knew he was buzzed. So when it was time to go, he got a ride home instead of driving. Be a legend like Jordan. Recognize your buzzed warning signs and get a ride home. Buzz driving is drunk driving.
Now with parting shots, Stacey Sauter.
Listen, we have an election season. We're in an election season. We have a primary coming up in May. I would emphasize to all the viewers out there that the future of the nation rests in your hands. Educate yourself and prepare for election day. It's so important. We have a convention coming up tomorrow, which I'm very excited about. And Casey, you'll be participating with us as a moderator on a couple of panels. I hope people can attend, but they likely miss this broadcast. I mean, they'll miss the convention because this broadcast will be afterwards, but they can follow up with me if they have any questions, reaching out to the Montgomery County Republican Party.
Thank you, Stacey. Mike Knapp, your parting shot.
Thanks, Casey. I just want to say thank you to our delegation that has just come back from their time in Annapolis, and we had the opportunity to hear from Delegate Spiegel earlier in the program, and we're just learning now all of the things that they've done for different parts of our community. And so a couple that I'm aware of that our delegation identified resources for Identity, a group in Gaithersburg that's focused on helping Latino youth and families, and provided resources to them. Black Rock Center for the Arts was a beneficiary of some resources from the state. And I just want to thank all of our delegation for the efforts that they have and the resources they provided and the policies they've addressed for the county and for the state, and appreciate their efforts.
Thank you so much, guys. I appreciate both you and Stacey being here today. I want to give a special thanks for Delegate Spiegel for appearing today, and also a thank you to Delegate Cheryl Kagan, who suggested that I invite Delegate Spiegel to be on the show today. I want to thank you all, and I want to thank the audience for tuning in each and every week to Montgomery County's hardest-hitting political talk show. For 21 this week, I'm Casey Aiken.